Hi guys, this is Rico, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do hair in Blender in a controlled and relatively easy way to do. A lot of people have been asking me how I do hair in Blender, and it's kind of a tricky thing, and it took me a while to learn how to do it effectively, because hair is it's really hard to control even in the real world, because it's all these zillions of little strand thingies, and you've got to find a way to control all of them. So it's really hard, and in the CG it's even harder. So Blender does a really good job of making it possible to control hair and style it and so on. So I'm going to show you how to use the tools that are available in Blender to get acceptable results. So we're starting with a model here, and I'll upload this model to YouTube for you guys if you want to use this one. I'll put it in the link in the description. And this model is just very basic stuff. It's the model and the sculpt mesh, and this mesh here is what's gonna contain the hair particle system. So you'll notice it's like a very untidy little mesh, but it doesn't matter because the skull doesn't move, and this is just going to be parented to the head in the end. So we have a nice little model and sculpt. So let's name our sculpt and our head. And before we begin, you should make sure that the sculpt contains no modifiers, and Control A to apply the scale, rotation, and location. Well, location is optional, but scale is the important one. You want to make sure that the scale is applied here. Okay, let's get started. Go over to your select your sculpt mesh, selected right there. Head over to your particles tab here and new hair system. So let me just make this a little bit larger. Cool. Advanced. We want advanced settings. Okay, so just enable that, and let's set the hair length a little bit shorter. I'm gonna go for medium hairstyle, like that. Should be good. So yeah, cool. Now we go into particle edit mode, and this is what you get. Now, particle edit mode has, if you're not familiar with it, quite a few tools that look pretty powerful, and they are pretty powerful. It's got like comb, smooth, add, length, puff, cut, and weight, and these tools are what you're going to use to get the final result. So of the styling of your hair. So what you'll have noticed if you've ever used these tools, that on the face of it, it's pretty hard. I mean, how do you control those stray strands? And you can get decent results, but it's kind of weird, and then it feels clunky, right? And I'm sure anybody who's done hair in Blender is familiar with this. I mean, you can get something that looks decent, but it's pretty hard to control. And when you tab out of hair edit mode, you'll see that the hair just doesn't look the same anymore, and it's got all kinds of issues, and well, we're going to be looking at that today. So first thing you want to do in your hair system, in your particle edit mode, is A, select everything, and X, delete particle. So it's all empty, got nothing, nice and clean. So now here, add, this little add button is to actually add new strands in. So that's what we're going to do. Make sure that interpolate is switched on, and set the keys to about 7 or 8 should be good. What else? Deflect emitter should be kind of low, so let's make it 0.05. Now, if you add in hairs, I like to start here near the front, and just add like 6 or 7 hairs. We're adding them individually, So make sure the count, like if you've got like 5, add like 5 at a time. That's not cool. Just don't add zillions of hairs like that. It's just making life difficult. So add like 10 or 12 strands, and then switch over to your comb tool and select the strength to about not 100%. 100% is just far too strong. You got 100%, it acts like a, I don't know, like a whirlwind. So you want it to be at least 50.5 and not more than 0.8. So let's put it up at 0.6. That's a bit better. Gives a more natural reaction to your strokes. So now with your brush, you start with a relatively large brush and you just start combing them a little bit to be roughly how you think they'd be. Add now the length, obviously, increases the length. If you hold shift, it decreases it. Without shift, it increases it. Kind of like sculpting. So shift just does the opposite. For some brushes, like comb, I don't think shift has any effect. So just comb these here. Okay, so now we've got like a base layer, guide hair. I call them guide hairs. And now if you add, and make sure interpolate switched on again. Now if you continue adding, you'll see that, oops, put the count back to 1. You'll see that the new strands that you add in here are actually following the other ones. So that's really useful. And another thing that you can do to for additional control is to select all your strands, A, just like a mesh, and hit H, and then they're hidden. They're still there. It's like this little light preview thingy. That means they're still there. But now you can actually work on another clump of hair while this lot isn't affected. So I can comb these out, and those remain the same. That works wonderfully. I'm going to make the length a little bit shorter for this forward part here, so we've got a fringe type of thingy here. And I got a camera set up here, so I'm just going to check how it looks from my camera. Maybe something like that. Maybe a little bit longer. Comb it down. And again, your comb brush shouldn't be too strong. If it's too strong, it's impossible to work with it. So yeah, 0.6, 0.7, thereabouts should be good for the broader strokes. If you, once you're doing like the minute little tweaks, it can go even weaker. But for now, that's about good. Okay, Alt H to unhide those, and you'll see when they're unhidden, when they appear, they're all orange. That means they're selected. Now, cool thing about selecting hair is that only the selected strands are influenced by your brush strokes. So I can, for example, hold my mouse over this one here and hit L to select it. L, and then you see it's like a mask. It works like a mask. You can go tweak and modify these without influencing the rest of them. Okay, so using the selection tools and the and hiding clumps of hair, certain clumps of hair, helps a lot to kind of get more control out of it. Another thing that's really useful is subdivision. So you can select the hair, say those hairs over there, and hit W, and then here's subdivide. So you can subdivide them to get more control, especially that area where they're coming out of the sculpt there. Another thing, yeah, so that's great for control, and you can really fine-tune. And you notice I've only got a few hairs so far. That's because we're not going to be adding like zillions of hairs on this sculpt. We're going to be using children to kind of simulate the additional hairs. So we're just adding like the base control hairs. I call them. See, so they're like they're just going to be telling all the other hairs what to do. So there doesn't have to be. Actually, the less you can get away with, the better. Just make sure they're evenly distributed and they have the volume and the styling that you want for your hair. So I'm going to hide those again and just work on this forward part here. Always remember, interpolate should be switched on. Let's do these here. Oh, that looks great. Select the ones we just added, comb them a little bit, not much. If you find that the hairs look a bit chunky, you can always increase the path steps down here, and they're like smoother. Like if they're 2, I think default is 2, they look really blocky, and that doesn't look cool. So it's actually just a preview, because if you tab out of hair edit mode, they're all the same again, and I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. So here we are. That is starting to look like something. Alt H, those are selected, so the other ones won't be influenced. So we can just do that. Have it curl around the ear over there. Cool. That's cool. Let's add a few more over here. Add. You can a lot of the tools in the hair edit mode are the same as mesh editing tools. So A is to select everything and deselect. W has some options like subdivide and so on. Yeah, I'll talk you through these things as we get to them. Anyway, Control I is to invert the selection. Let's just comb these out here. Down on the side of the face, something like that. Length. Make that a bit longer. Comb them a little bit more. And it's all about. Okay, now that you see right there, I'm trying to comb it inwards and it won't let me. That's because of the setting right here, deflect emitter. I like to switch this off once I get to this type of thing. So because no matter how low you set it, at some point it's going to block you, and that's just the sculpt mesh trying to calculate like the boundaries of where you're allowed to put it based on the normals or something. I'm not sure how it works, but at some point I just switch it off eventually. It's great in the beginning when you're adding the first hairs to just kind of make sure that they don't intersect with the sculpt, but later on it gets kind of pointless because the other hairs are already guiding any new hairs you add. So that looks okay. I'm going to preview this in my camera. Let's make it a little bit shorter. No, looks good. Okay. A to select everything. Add a few more in here. Control I, invert the selection. Just comb them out. Just fill in the gaps. It's basically hang on, what am I doing here? Length. Yeah, hair editing and styling is just about filling in the gaps, I guess. It's like you start with something and you just keep filling in until it looks good. So that's what I'm going to try and do here. Let's curl it around this way. Now, all these little vertexes here can be disabled if you just click on this one here, and it just shows like the strands. But then you can't, I guess you can't really select the hairs. So it's got like 3 different modes. So it's got like strands, vertex mode, and tip mode. So it just has the tips, and you can manipulate the tips if you want to, and we'll probably be doing that a little bit later. I like to keep it on the vertex mode for the most part. Again, hold your mouse over a strand, L, select the whole strand to isolate it, and then just comb it out. Looks good. Okay, just keep going, and do here, here, Control I, comb. So as you can see, this is a lot easier to control the hair than just trying to comb the entire mess like I did in the beginning. It just doesn't work. Let's go into side view mode and just check the length. You want to keep your hair relatively tidy, but especially the lengths, you want to keep them relatively even. They don't have to be perfect, otherwise she'll end up looking like Spock from, you know, like a perfect haircut, and we don't want that because, yeah, she'd look weird, I guess. So you just want to keep them relatively the same length. Hang on, what did I just do here? And these are way too long, but we'll fix that in a moment. Well, actually, they're not that far out. A little bit shorter, and then just comb in, but they make this little wavy thing here. Let's invert that. Let's bring down the length a little bit. That's good. That's good. Add. And you'll notice every time before I add, I just select all the hairs so that I can invert the selection after I added in order to work on the strands that I just added to the system. So let's add a little bit of variation to that. Do that, not too much. If you just do like so, it just doesn't look good in the end. So you got to keep in mind we're going to be adding children to this. So anything you do here is going to be like multiplied 100-fold. So you want to make sure you've got a good foundation. What's going on? I'm trying to select this guy here. There you go. I'm trying to fix that there. Now also another thing you can do is C, as in mesh select mode. You can C to select certain vertices. And I like to do this to isolate like clumps of hair. And yeah, from here on in it's just about refining and refining, and filling in the gaps. So let's keep doing that. Trying to get a similar hairstyle to one of my other artworks that I'm sure you've seen. You may have seen, I guess. It's like this fluffy type of hairstyle. It's got like, yeah, it's trying to get something attractive, appealing. Okay, cool. It's starting to look pretty good. I'm gonna add some more down here, just above the ear. And they're obviously way too long, so let's shorten them a little bit. Wait. Take a look at our camera again. Probably a good idea to keep previewing it in the camera, just in case. Especially if you're doing a still frame. If you're doing an animation, you want it to look good from all angles. But if you're doing a still frame, it doesn't really matter. You can just make sure it all looks good from one angle. Cool. Let's preview it with some children. Nice. Yep, it's got potential. Let's add in those last fields. And now, when that happens, it means that hair is trying to copy all the other hairs on the head. So you just gotta bring it out. Just tell it how it's supposed to be, and then anything else you add in the vicinity will copy it. Some of them still aren't perfect, but we'll fix that in a moment. Control I, let's select that one as well. Okay, let's just comb them all right. I think it's supposed to be this way, I'm not sure, because I've got my, yeah, no, opposite direction. Put them all like that. And this is the great thing about masking, I can go crazy. Let's subdivide them as well. For longer strands you want to subdivide them sometimes because they tend to get a little bit clunky to work with. The less control points it has, the harder it is to work with. So comb these in here. Try and get the flow of the hair right. And you can use the smooth brush, it doesn't always work that well. In some cases it does. In this case it doesn't. Let's preview that. Nice. Not there yet. But we'll get there. Okay. These two should probably flow with those over there. Yeah. Okay, now I can switch off interpolation because I just want a bunch of straight ones right up here. Like so. Just select them, hide, unhide, switch them all over like so. I think that fringe this here is pointing the wrong way, but I'll try and fix it. No. Okay, I'm just gonna speed this up because it's kind of boring, and I guess you guys get the idea, right? So here we go. Okay, so we now have a nice little base hair system. So, but when you look at this in like the normal viewport, it looks really, really ugly, and it's just a few hairs, and they're really not enough. So this is what we're going to be using the children for. But before we do any of that, I'm going to be showing you some of the settings that you need to do before going any further with this. So let's go from the top. I guess you could rename this to like hair main system, like that. And let's see what else. Nothing here, nothing here. Parents, enable that. It just also renders the parents strands in addition to the children's strands later on, I think. So another one you want to look at is here in the display tab. This is all under the particle settings, by the way. So display tab, steps. This is the one you want to go to about for longish hair, and like this you probably want to go to about 4 or 5 should be good. I'm going to keep it at 4 because my laptop is not so beefy. If you jack this all the way to 7, it takes a really lot of juice to render and so on. I'm going to keep mine at 4, and then also you want to enable B-spline. I think this is only relevant if you render in a certain mode for the line segments. I'm not sure what this does, honestly. I just know if you enable it, it kind of gives you better results in the final render. So already you can see the hair is looking a lot better. With only 1 or 2 steps it looks really bad. And with B-spline, yeah. So I take it to 4 and give it a B-spline. Okay, so that's our base system. Now enable interpolated in the children tab. So immediately that looks quite a bit better. You can see we've got more hair and so on. It's going to render 100 strands and it's only displaying 10. So let's set this to 100. And you can see, well, it looks okay, but it looks very chunky, and so yeah. Let's see if we can do anything about that. I'm going to set this to about 50 to get good viewport performance, or better viewport performance. Clump setting, just I like to keep it at from 80 to 100. About I'm gonna go with something like 0.9, I guess, thereabouts. Okay, the shape of each clump basically controls how fat the clump is. As you can see, if I'm tweaking it towards the positive, it gets fatter, towards the negative, it gets thinner. That's very useful. We can do ours about 0.3. Looks okay, does it? Okay. Length basically just controls the length of each strand based on, uses the parent strand for a guide. Okay, we're going to keep that at 100%. Actually, put it at 90 and set the threshold to something 0.5. That means it only makes half of the hair slightly shorter and helps to kind of get that fuzzy, fluffy type of look. But like that. Parting is basically how strong each parent hair is, how much of an influence it has on its own particular children. So I like to keep it very low, or 0 should be good. Minimum, maximum, don't worry about that. Seed gives you different outcomes, like random outcomes based on the parameters that you set here. It's just like a random value. So you can go through these and find something that you like, I guess. Let's keep it at 0, I guess, for now. Long hair. This often helps a lot to give the children better shape, I guess. To like if you disable it, they just, yeah, it doesn't have that much volume, if I could put it like that. So that's great. Roughness curve is just a curve that controls the roughness of the hair, but we're not going to use that right now. We're going to be using the roughness settings, the values here. So the curve, just know that if you want a finer control of your roughness, then you can use a curve. I don't use it very often. I don't find it that necessary, but just know that you can use it. Okay, so the roughness settings right here. Uniform roughness, obviously, is just like a random value that adds across the entire hair system. I like to add a little bit, but not too much. So it is, yeah, something like that should be good. Endpoint rough. This one's interesting. It roughens the tips of the hair. As you can see, as I increase the value, the tips right here are becoming more frayed out, you know, like rougher. So I like to keep it low as well, but I do like to put in a little bit there. And then the shape. If you increase the shape, it's kind of confusing, because then the amount of roughness towards the tip moves towards the tip. And as you decrease it, it moves towards the root of each hair. So roughness is here right now, and the shape is at 1. The roughness is at normal. Let's put the shape to 0.6. And then the roughness moves a lot more towards the tip. And if you put the shape to like 0, I think the roughness is pretty much like across the whole thing. I'm not sure, but yeah. More than 1 is usually good, so I'm going to put mine to about 0.7, 0.9. Let's move that roughness down a little bit. Okay, that looks alright. Okay, the random value. Now, this is uniform roughness, so I'm not sure what the difference between uniform roughness and random roughness is, but the random one is extremely you can see the change right there. It has a huge effect, and then in many cases it is quite useful if you've got like this crazy type of character with wild crazy hair. This one can be really useful, but we don't want that. We want a little bit of roughness, and then we want a threshold, so only certain strands are actually affected by it. We'll go for something like that. This helps just to get that a few stray strands are out there, so like they're not all exactly following the parents perfectly. There are a few stray strands out there, and this one just helps. So set the threshold rather high and random rough. Actually, you can set the threshold a little bit lower, and then the random rough a little bit lower. Actually, that's not too much. Here is a lot about tweaking and tweaking and tweaking the values, and rendering and tweaking and rendering and tweaking. So be prepared to actually do quite a bit of trial and error, you know. But these settings right here are what I find to work a lot. Okay, now kink settings. These are interesting. It's got a bunch of settings, and each one of them will make your hair look totally different, which is cool, but also not quite practical because the values. Yeah, it's not quite practical because the values down here are just too high. So I like to go with curl or wave for this type of hair. Radial, not sure how it works. Yeah, it's an interesting pattern. Spiral puts a spiral at the end of each hair. Like if you look at that, yeah, interesting result. If you increase the steps here on the spiral setting, you get some interesting results, but not quite what I want. So, well, that looks pretty nice, but decrease the frequency. Yeah, you can get some interesting stuff with this. But yeah, the one braid turns. I think it takes each parent's children and just like spirals them around the parent, basically. Pretty cool, but yeah, we're gonna go with curl, I guess. I think curl wave. go with curl. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, it's far too drastic right now. The effect is just breaking our entire hair system. So first of all, take the frequency down quite a bit. So frequency is just how many curls there are per parent or per length of hair. So more, less. So we'll put it about there. We want to keep this pretty subtle. And then the shape, as you increase the shape, the effect of the curl, as you increase the shape, the effect of the curl moves more towards the tip, and as you decrease it, it moves towards the root. So we want to go about halfway, I suppose, a little bit more. Frequency, okay. Amplitude. This is like the severity of the curl. So if you increase it, decrease it quite a bit, and we can increase the frequency a little bit. Amplitude down. Shape, because I want the top strands up there up here to have very little curl on them, and then towards the tips they can have a little bit more. Something like that looks nice. This here is a bit of a mess. I'm going to see if I can fix that up. I think it's a random rough doing that, or it could be some of these other settings. We'll go through them in a minute. Just one more time. Flatness, I've never been really sure what that does. It acts almost like the clump setting up here, but yeah, I'm not sure about that. Frequency, amplitude, frequency, trial and error, all the way. Okay, amplitude should be really not too much. Actually, I like it better without the curl. Okay, so we're gonna use curl, but a very small amount. Okay, and this is one feature that I personally would love to see in Blender, is have to have multiple kink settings, like kind of like the modifier stack, but like multiple kink settings on top of one another. That would be really great. Not sure how hard that is to implement. Probably pretty darn hard, but maybe in the future we'll get that. I don't know. So yeah, here's our hair system. And let's bring that down a little bit. And it's looking nice. Debatable. I'm gonna keep tweaking this and do some test renders. And then yeah, I'm pretty sure this looks nice. I mean, it's nice and tidy. Easily go ahead and customize it quite a bit, which I might just do. Now that I'm here, let us disable this. You can just disable it here while you're editing. Disable the children, like that, because I just want to bring out a couple of these strands here, just make them a little bit more wavy. Take out that, increase that cone. No, come on. Up that. This also acts very much like mesh editing. You can set the transparency of the verts, which is useful in some cases. Okay, a couple more things about hair just before I'm done. You can grab and rotate and scale here. So you grab a section, G on the keyboard, and you can actually move them around. Cool. Or you can use the manipulators here. So if you select all the hair, you can actually adjust it a little bit, which is really useful, and I think I will. Okay, and same thing with rotate. Rotate. Come on. Just set it to none. or use R on the keyboard. I don't know why it's not selecting that. Anyhow, you can rotate, scale, move the hair around. Just keep in mind that the roots will not move, so whatever you do will only be applied to the other parts of the hair, not the roots. So scale is here really useful in some cases. You just want to reel it in just a little bit, and I think I will. So a couple of general tips on here is always try to keep the silhouette in mind. So I like to set my hair color to pitch black, so mostly, and then enable quite a lot of children, and then zoom out, and I've got like a silhouette, and it helps me kind of evaluate the volumes and the shapes and all that. And I think this is looking pretty good indeed. And that's looking good. Of course, I'll probably want to do a little bit more tweaking on some of these settings here. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this, and I hope you guys learned something. And I'll be making another video, a follow-up video, that shows how to actually do materials and rendering and stuff like that. So thanks guys, thanks for watching, and cheers. Yeah, see you next time.